Good afternoon. So that title is wrong. I think I corrected that, but still it applies because the title ended this year. So thank you very, very much for that beautiful presentation. So I'll be talking to you about DevSecOps. I think for Zero Trust, we're going to address that in the panel. The last time I did a DevSecOps presentation, I spent 4 hours, so trying to compile that into 15 minutes. I asked Harry, and Harry was not helpful. So thank you very, very much. So there you go. So I'll be talking about automating security in your development process. And I know when we talk about automation in security, we think it's bulletproof. And I want to tell you it's not. Yeah? When you automate security, what you're doing is when you're automating security in your development process, what you're doing is you're managing your risk. And this is a very, very beautiful quote from, well, me. Assuming you're hacker-proof is like assuming your love life will last forever. Very, very unlikely, right? Depends on the environment, depends on your partner, and most importantly, it really, really relies on how much money you spend on the security, not the love life. Yeah? But, well, there's always hope at the end of the tunnel. And we've seen so much security breaches, and I want to tell you, they always start with your product. They always start with your developers, and they always start with what you actually have running on your core, in your infrastructure. When I'm a pen tester by profession, and when I have fintech application, there are 4 things I look for. 1, intercepting communication. What am I looking for here? I'm looking to actually modify the transactions that you're doing. 2, I'm looking to falsify authorization. How will this help me? Actually help me do more than what it's supposed to do. I know you guys are looking at the OWASP top 10 or the API top 10, but if you give me your application to break it down, I'm looking to do these 4 things. Intercept communication, falsify authorization, and for transaction, that's a very big thing. If I have 1 million shillings in my account, but I can't be able to withdraw 2 million shillings from your account, then there's a very big problem. Tampering with client-side data. Data is everything. I mean, this is self-explanatory. And then insecure APIs and integration. APIs are my baby. I break them down, I build them up, and I tell you what to do. And I have this beautiful phrase, it's called an assurance bleed. If I find your API has a data leak, I give you a very beautiful vulnerability. It's called an assurance bleed. It means I will make sure this API bleeds data. Fun fact, 9 out of 10 businesses cannot keep up with their security threats. Why? You have 100 technologies running on your infrastructure. You have 100 developers. You have Azure, you have AWS, you have GCP running in your entire company. You have a network, you've done expansion and growth. How are you going to keep up with security? This is why. This is your CI/CD pipeline. It's very beautiful. You have your developers, they send code into one place. At the end of the day, what they tell you in the end is just click, refresh, that feature is up and running. That's how you know that they've deployed the feature, right? And then you have your DevOps pipeline. It's very beautiful. I know it doesn't look nice. There's an ops team. They make sure all code sent has been compiled. There's a branch they have to push to, and then there's that central repository. But you don't know all these processes that are happening, but you have your dev team and your ops doing this. And then security comes at the end, right? What does your security lifecycle look like? This is your security lifecycle. Very beautiful. At the very end of your pipeline, you have your pen tester. He's looking at all these technologies. You have Azure, AWS. You have developers submitting 30,000 lines of code every 10 minutes. And that is your security guy. How is he supposed to keep up with security of your product? Your fintech, your entire business is an application. Your entire business is one Android application, but that is your pen tester. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. You improve your budget, you increase your security budget, And what do you provide? Very beautiful. More screens, one pen tester. Who is a pen tester in the house? Do you have pen testers in the house? How many screens do you have? When I was working, I had 4. Those beautiful curved OLED screens with one machine. And I had applications with 100 microservices, with clients everywhere, with data to protect, encryption, so much. This was me. Let's shift left. You can solve it. We've seen so many data breaches, but you don't know how to protect them. DevSecOps is a shifting left narrative. I know you've heard of it, but you don't know what it is. What that means is you start security from the development point of view, not the very end. We don't want your pen tester at the very end. He will not, at most, he will not capture security threats, and they're still coming at you. So this looks like this. This is actually the simplified version of it. You have the planning, the threat modeling. You build possible attack vectors. I've done this for so many fintechs. I can do it in my sleep. Then you have the dev stage. This is where you actually saw things like AWS keys that were leaked. I know you've seen this. You have the build. This is the things when all this code comes together. Source code composition, analysis, source code reviews, dynamic. I know for you guys, this sounds very, very familiar. And you have the staging server and the production server. This is the people with a little bit of money, yeah? You have 2 servers, one that does code that's not on production, and then the production. So on staging is where you run your VAPTs. Please, I want to repeat that. You run your VAPTs on staging, not on production, not when your users are using the application, not when your APIs are live. When we're doing logging and monitoring, I see weird things. You're running VAPTs on an endpoint that is doing Swift, and it's live. Very interesting. Threat modeling. What does that look like? This is where we build very fancy, very, very fancy art. It's not the most beautiful things. But what you're looking at is you're capturing data flows. You're capturing trust boundaries. You're capturing user roles. You're actually drawing how the product works. So this will use HTTP, this will use HTTPS. This is the kind of data you provide. This is the kind of data you're not supposed to provide the users. This is what you encrypt it with. This is what you don't encrypt with. Areas risk. This is a simple demo of how it works. You have a web UI. Internet is showing you how data is moving. There's customer data through HTTPS. You're allowed by the organization to make sure that data is encrypted through SSL. SSL is not security, but it helps. Yeah? Simple. On the dev stage. So this is an AWS credential disclosure. Which company? Can anyone read that? To US Department of Defense. So these were AWS credentials that were leaked. This is somewhere on production. If you know what credentials do, then you know what this problem is. And this is at the development stage. How do you solve this? Tools. This phase will get things like SSH keys, access keys, secret authentication tokens, password. This is a very good tool. It's called Talisman. Any company I do DevSecOps, I will deploy this. And this I deploy on developers' machines. When you deploy this on developer machine, can you see that command? Git push. Every time they send code, tells them, hey, there's this PEM file. This has AWS secret keys. So it will not deploy that code onto your server. Problem solved? And this doesn't need to get to the pen tester. Some tools. One, Talisman, TruffleHog, Git Secret, GitHound. Whichever solution you're using, they have APIs to integrate. Second stage, builds. So this is where you find things like vulnerable and outdated third-party libraries. And the best tool for this, standard-wise, the OWASP dependency checker. This is the OWASP in check. It's giving you CVEs, problems, weaknesses, the vulnerability, how to fix it. And if you know how to follow a vulnerability, it gives you this, and you know how to fix it. Beautiful, right? Very beautiful. Talisman OWASP check, open source. Things you can do into your CI/CD pipeline, and it's automated. You have 100 developers, you don't have to worry about that. If you're hiring me in your company as a pen tester, and you don't allow me to deploy automation in DevSecOps, I will not pick that job. Because these are the things I have to deal with. So now you have this simple funnel. This time is flying, huh? You've sorted the pre-commit hooks, like those AWS issues, source code composition, source code reviews. I didn't talk about that because I think that's the one thing we all know. Threat modeling. So now your pen tester is at the bottom of the funnel. He has two things to do: vulnerability assessment and pen testing. And my dear ladies and gentlemen, there is a difference between VA and pen testing. Vulnerability assessment has no exploits. Pen testing has exploits. If I'm charging you VA 300K, a pen test will probably cost 3 times that, because there is exploitation. Proof of concept. And a VA, just buy a VA tool. It will scan, give you a report. It doesn't need to exploit. Okay? So what am I looking at as a pen tester now that we've gotten to the end of this? Business logic bugs. You know what are business logic bugs? The most paid for bugs out here, the most critical bugs. The assurance bleeds. Those falls into the business logic bugs, and they cannot be found by any tool. Your pen tester or system analyst, whoever you want to call him, cybersecurity engineer, information security engineer, you have very fancy titles. They need to be able to do this. They need to be able to find business logic bugs. And business logic bugs for fintech are not the same kind of business logic bugs for a marketing agency or an e-commerce. Good. Fintech, e-commerce. If I work in fintech, probably don't know how to do, I have to figure out how to do business logic bugs in another institution, because business logic bugs are based on your business. Fintech, money is moving. Money is critical. I'm following the money. That's a pen tester. It's a true pen tester. Then you have what else am I testing for? The HackerOne Top 10. You use OWASP. OWASP a bit older. HackerOne Top 10 is based on financial impact. If you go to HackerOne, it will show you, for this kind of vulnerability, authentication, we paid $20 million. How many vulnerabilities were found? 10,000 of them. That's why it's on top of our list. And HackerOne is a bit more proactive. You can still use the OWASP Top 10, for sure. Some of these vulnerabilities cut across. But if you want to be more generic, use the HackerOne Top 10. OWASP API Top 10, standard. You can still use the HackerOne API Top 10. But they don't classify the APIs. They classify the total web applications. Very good API Top 10, authentication, session management. And session management for APIs are hackers' playground. I've been there. They're very beautiful to exploit. When you're doing a pen test and data is just rolling down, that's good. CVE checkers, prioritization of bugs, critical high. In automation, critical or high should not go to production. But on development, media low. And some of the tools you can use. Babsuit, Postman, Reengine, Nuclei, and Kite Runner. That's for API testing. And then the last step, which is the crowdsourcing. Bring all your application after all this and have 20 hackers attack them and give you assurance and validation that you actually don't have issues on them. Thank you. Any questions?
Asante, Judy. I think it's important that we have this conversation in front of both technical and non-technical audiences, because I think it brings an appreciation of a very critical cog of work that happens behind the screen or behind the scenes to make sure that your favorite app, whether you're ordering for food or a beer or booking yourself in for a spa, for a spa treatment, that everything goes well. I'd like to probably explore something different that I know you do.
Yeah.
And that would probably help those in this audience and online that are not maybe sufficiently savvy, and that's your bug bounty program.
Yes.
How does that work? How do people plug in, and what value, or how are you plugging this gap for security on our applications?
Good question. So the bug bounty program works in such a way that you have 500 hackers. We had signed up 500,000 hackers on the platform.
500,000. Are this local on Africa,
no,
or this is
no,
global?
No. Everywhere.
Global. Okay.
Global. 500,000 hackers. What they do is they come. You have Safari Express, you have dx5.com, and you want to find vulnerabilities on there. One pen tester cannot solve all your problems. How do you stay ahead of the game? The black hats are organized crime group. There are so many. So the best way to actually stay ahead is to make sure you also have the same kind of people behind you. So you bring this 500,000, they're on your platform, they find vulnerabilities, and for each vulnerability they find that is valid and has business impact, you pay a small stipend for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's a small stipend? what's a benchmark?
Benchmark. Facebook pays over $1 million for critical vulnerability. Safaricom pays $2,000 for critical vulnerability. So this depends on business budget. Yeah, so I would say we did one for fintech the other day. They were paying $1,000 for critical and $100 for low.
Fantastic. And what's the business model for you? Is it, do you take a rake on that, or is this CSR? Is this you saying, this is my gift to the world?
No, we don't do CSR here, please. No. For business, you pay a platform fee, for sure, it's not much.
Okay.
You pay a platform fee, and then for hackers, you pay for each vulnerability, there's a payout, we take up a certain percentage.
Gotcha.
So you don't pay unless there's an actual vulnerability you're getting paid for.
Excellent. And for those watching, and probably others in the room who may consider themselves self-taught, what are the fundamentals of disclosure? We've seen many times on Twitter screenshots going around and someone saying, I'm in.
Yeah.
What would you tell them are the fundamentals of disclosure?
I would say jail time is not as beautiful. Yeah, if you need you need validation on Twitter, I get that. But jail time is also beckoning, and cybersecurity is being classified under terrorism at some point because of the impact they're doing. Like what happened with WannaCry.
Yes.
It made you want to cry because they attacked hospitals. Yeah. So the impact is really bad. The disclosure, I understand you want to get paid for it. That's why we have such platform for you to come and say, you know what, I'm a good hacker. Actually, the best bug bounty hunter in Kenya is a banker. He was a banker.
Interesting.
And he's very good at pen testing, bug bounty.
Yes.
Because his way of thinking is very different from how we actually think about security. Yeah.
Fantastic. Help me appreciate Judy.